A very good morning to all of you. Myself, Dr. Varun Narayan Misra, and today we are going to discuss about the impacts of climate change. Uh, in today's lecture, our special emphasis will be on the ecological impacts of the climate change, how the climate change is affecting the different components of our ecology, our environment. It also includes some of the effects on, you can say, the animal life and other kind of biological properties. So today, just I'm going to start with a figure. This figure is showing some of the components of our ecology. Okay, these are the ecological components, and the changing climate is affecting different components of our ecology. Means how and it is affecting the human life, how it is affecting the animal life, how it is affecting the wildlife and other kind of forest and other activities related to the ecology. Okay, so as we know that climate is changing, it's a very common thing, and it's very obvious that in most part of the world the climate is changing frequently, and the rate of the climate change is very fast. So these are few of the indicators of the changing climate: temperature, rise in the temperature, rise in the sea level, acidification of the oceans, acidification of the water in the oceans, and the climate change is reflected in the water cycle changes and in extreme weather. Okay, so these are some common indicators which shows the climate is changing. And one of the most important indicator of changing climate is the rising temperature. The global temperature or global annual temperature is increasing day by day, and the temperature rise is indicated by the color here in the globe. You see the red color in the figure. The red color is showing the higher rate of the increase in the temperature, and it was observed that after 1850 the earth's surface temperature has risen up to 1.3 degree Fahrenheit. Okay, so and all the red color in when you see this globe, this photograph, all the red colors are showing the rapid increase in the temperature. Temperature rise is one of the important indicator of the changing climate, and after 1850 it was observed that it is risen by 1.3 degree Fahrenheit. Okay, so and other indicators are the sea level rise, the ocean acidification of the ocean water, and there are extreme weather conditions. Some part of the world are facing flood, some part of the world are facing the drought. Okay, these are also the indicator of climate change. Okay, now today we are going to discuss some of the impacts of global climate change on the ecology, how ecological components are get affected by the climate change. So ecology includes all the living things, and all the living things, or you can say the living organisms, are interconnected with each other. Okay, each and every living thing, or you can say the living organisms, are intimately connected to their physical surroundings. Okay, as we as a human, we live in a environment. Okay, so our surrounding environment, our surrounding condition of the environment is known as the ecology. And in the change of the temperature, precipitation, and changing climatic scenario, our ecosystem and our ecology is also affecting. So the ecosystems, or you can say the environment where we live, are affected by the changes in the temperature, changes in the rainfall, salinity, activities and distribution of other species, and pH values of the water, means acidification of the water bodies on the earth surface. So different components of the ecosystems are get affected by the changing climate, and most of the changes in the ecosystem are by the temperature rise, extreme rainfall, and you can say the activities and the distribution of other species, and different there are different other factors. Okay, so as a result of climate change, different species and different living things, different living organisms who are living in the ecosystem environment are experiencing the changes. Okay, so these are some of the changes. Ranges timing of the biological activity, growth rate, the relative abundance of the species, cycling of the water and nutrients, the risk of the disturbance from the fire, insects, invasive species. These are some of the impacts of the climate change on our ecology. So we will discuss one by one how it is affecting the biological activity, how it is affecting the growth rate of different species, different plants, and what is the relative abundance of species, cycling of the water and nutrient. Okay, so ranges. First, we will start with the ranges. Range shift means the species are relocating to the areas with more tolerable climate conditions. Different species, you can say it may be a plant or it may be any animal. So different species, you can say the plant or animals are relocating to different areas with more tolerable climate conditions, and this range shift particularly threaten the species that cannot move fast enough, depend on the condition that are becoming more rare. In the changing climate, some of the animals or some of the plants can shift from one place to another place, but in some cases the species, a particular species, cannot move from one place to another place. So then they will be, you can say, there will be the disappearance of different species, there may be the disappearance of different kinds of, you can say, the plants. So range shift means how different species, or you can say how different kinds of plants, different kinds of animals are shifting from one place to another place. If an animal is living in a place and there is extreme weather condition, extreme climate condition, so definitely he wants, or that animal, that species will be forced to shift from that place to another place. So this is the range shift, means how different species are shifting or moving from one place to another place in case of extreme weather condition, in case of worst climatic conditions. Okay, so this is the range shift. This is a kind of effect of the climate change on the range shift. Then second impact on the ecology is the timing of biological activity. The timing of biological activity means some seasonal biological activities are happening 15 to 20 days earlier than several decades ago, like the tree blooming. Okay, the blooming of trees, the timing of the blooming of trees are shifting. It is shifting to earlier time. Migrating the birds arriving at earlier, butterflies are emerging earlier. So these biological activities are strongly affected by the climate change. Okay, suppose before the climate change, the timing of blooming of a tree is around, you can say, the January, February, March, but right now it is shifted 15 to 20 days earlier. So the changes in the timing differ from species to species, and it is having the ecological interactions, and it is disrupted. Okay, so these ecological interactions are disrupted because of the changing climate condition, and because of this change, the timing of biological activities are affected by the climate change. Global changes are also affecting at a local level, means whatever the changes in the climate at a global level, as a, or you can say as a, when we talk about the global change, so we are talking about some facts which is occurring all around the globe, but the changes at a global level are also affecting the local level conditions. It is not like that we are talking about global climate change. In case of global climate change, the impacts of the global climate change are also affecting the local climatic conditions. Okay, although the climate change is global, but the ecological impacts of such changing conditions, such climatic conditions, are also affecting the local environmental condition, local ecological condition at at a regional level, at a district level, or at a, you can say, the state level. Okay, so most of the changing climate scenario are affecting from the global to local level. It is occurring at a global level, but it is also affecting the local level conditions of the environment and ecology ecosystem. It is also impacting the Pacific coastline. Coastal regions are also get affected by the global climate change. That is the shifting ranges of the check spot butterflies. Okay, so this checker spot butterflies has shifted northward to the higher elevation over 50 plus 40 plus years. Okay, So this is the impact of the climate change. Impacts in the Pacific coastline, the water in the oceans are changing. There is a shift in the species ranges, that may be species moving northward. A mysterious death zone along the Washington and other coastline regions causes the undermined but potential links to the climate change. So the species living in the oceans, or different oceanic lives, different living organisms living in the oceans, they are also shifting from one place to another place because of the acidification of the water, because of the change, because of the impacts of the climate change on the sea surface or sea water. Okay, and there is also having impacts in the Pacific coastline. The climate changes affect the managed ecosystem like vineyards and farms, just as it affects the natural ecosystem. Farming condition is also affecting the farming pattern, and farming time is also affected by the climate change. The future warming unlikely to help wine growers in California's premium wine region. Some areas projected to become the marginal by 200 2100. Okay, and this is another impact of the climate change. Climate change are also affecting the life in the Alaska and the Arctic region, and they are affecting the ice dependent animals. Most of the animals are dependent on the ice sheet. They live in the Arctic and Antarctic regions. Okay, so because of the shrinking of the ice surface, because of this melting of the ice and glaciers, different kinds of animals who live in that region, they are facing the problem of food and other kind of amenities. Okay, polar bears are one of the most important part of the Arctic ecosystem. They live on the poles, and they are totally dependent on the food which is available in a uh, ice cap and other kind of glaciers. But the polar bears are facing difficult hunting conditions, and seals are now surfacing in the open ocean instead of holes in the ice. So because of the melting of ice, the main source of the food of polar bears like seals, they are shifting to the sea. They are not in the holes in the ice, they are not present in the holes in the ice. So because of this, polar bears are facing the problem of the food availability. Okay, and also affecting the food chain. This changing climate is affecting the food chain, as we know that different animals are integrated, or different animals are bind in a food chain. So because of the climate change, food change is changing, food chain scenario is changing. There is an increased shrub growth that is presenting a threat to the caribou, that is a wild reindeer. Shrubs crowding out leaches, a key winter food for the caribou. The shrubs collect the snow, causing the deep snow drift. Deep snow make it hard for the caribou to reach the richness hidden the beneath. Okay. Oh, and because of the global climate change, or you can say the rise in the temperature, the melting of ice is very fast on the poles, or you can call it as the ice melting is very fast in the Arctic region. The Arctic is warming twice as fast as the rest of the planet. As sea ice and the seasonal snow cover melts, that previously reflective white surfaces converted to the darker surfaces, to the ocean water or the vegetation. The thawing permafrost releases the carbon dioxide and methane into the atmosphere, that is increasing the greenhouse gases. Okay, so the Arctic region, or you can say the poles, are having severe impact of the changing climate. They are warming as twice as the rest of the planet. Okay, so because of this, glaciers are melting at a fast rate, ice, sea ice is melting at a fast rate, and because of this, there is a rise in the coastal area. There is a rise in the sea level in the coastal regions, and because of this, different animals, different ecosystems present over the Arctic and Antarctic regions are get affected by the global climate change. So this in the figure you see the red regions are showing the warming regions on the globe. Okay, red is means red color is showing the higher rate of the rise in the temperature, and you see the poles. like this Arctic region is having most of the part under red color. That means there is a high rate of the rise in the temperature of that area. Okay, so that leads to the melting of ice, that leads to the melting of seasonal snow cover. Okay, wildfire, drought, and insects. Okay, so the climate change is also affecting the mountainous ecosystem. They are causing the wildfires, they are causing the droughts, they are causing the population growth of some of the insects, which is dangerous to the agricultural production. The climate change is increasing the risk of the fire in the areas where decades of total fire suppression have resulted in buildup of dead fuels. And wildfire increases in frequency, size, and seasonal length. Right now, the longer and more intense summer drought is stressing the trees, and stressed trees are more susceptible to attack the beetles, which leave standing death fuels in their wake. Okay, so climate change is also affecting the mountainous ecosystem. Because of this, there may be the increased occurrence of the wildfire, increased occurrence of the droughts, and some of the insects which is dangerous, which can be considered as a harmful to the agricultural productivity. Okay, so this is the another impact of the climate change. Okay, and the climate change is also affecting the American pika. It's an animal, it's a wild living organism, and the climbing to the higher elevation is in response to the warming. Many population now isolated on the mountain top islands. So this is the, you can say this is the direct impact of the climate change on the living organisms. It This is a animal, this is a living thing, live in the American pika region, and because of the global climate change, the existence of this animal is in the danger, and most of its population is now isolated on the mountaintop islands. Okay. Changes in the trout habitat, earlier springs and warmer summer reducing the stream flows as mountain snow melt off earlier in the season, and some stream reaching temperature lethal to the trout. Trout is a kind of, you can say, fish who live in a lakes near to the western mountains, and because of the changing climate, the ecosystem of the western mountains are get affected, and due to this there is a in, earlier rise in the spring season, and that there may be the warmer summer reducing the stream flows as mountain snow melt off the earlier in the season. So some streams reaching the temperature that is lethal to the trout. Okay, because of the rise in the temperature, the fish living in the lakes near to the western mountains, they are get affected and their existence are in the danger. Okay, so this is also having some impacts on the desert ecosystem. Okay, the climate change is also affecting the desert ecosystem because of the wildfire and invasive species. Okay, different kinds of grasses becoming established in the desert, red broom and buffer grass. Grass transforms the desert into the flammable grasslands, and this kind of flammable grassland will be the more susceptible for the fire adapted grassland that is re-established quickly, pushing out native species like saguaro cactus. A spread of the grass is not directly a result of climate change, but warming may allow them to further spread in the desert and extend to the higher elevations. Okay, so we can say here the climate change is also affecting the desert ecosystem because of the rise in the temperature. The grassland is now converting into the flammable grassland, and that will be more susceptible to the fire in case of some suitable scenarios. Okay, so the drought in 2000 to 2003 stressed a large swath of the pines. Okay, pinons. Pinons is a kind of a species. It's a kind of plant which can be found in the deserts, and it is that is leaving them susceptible to the invasion by pine bark beetles. This example shows how a stressful event can trigger the dramatic ecological change when an ecosystem is subjected to many interacting stresses. So because of the climate change, because of the rise in the temperature, plants are under stress. Because of this stress, they are very much susceptible to the forest fire. They are very much susceptible to the dead. And this is the scenario you see. This is the comparison between the photograph taken in year 2002 and 2004. So you see in 2004, most of the plants, most of the species are stressed, and they are not having much chlorophyll content. They are not having much chlorophyll concentration in the leaves. So they are becoming drier over the period of time. That is because of the global climate change. Okay, it is also affecting the agricultural sector. Global climate change is also affecting the agricultural sector. It is very difficult to pinpoint the climate impacts on the climate on the agricultural sector, but it is occurring along the improvement in the farming techniques. In general, the plants may grow faster, that you can say the increasing yield, unless it becomes too warm or crops mature too early, and it will be affected by the carbon dioxide level. And this is the reason behind the increased growth for some of the plants, not for others. So we need to have good information about the climate changes and adaptive practices. That is essential for the farmers. Because of the rise in the temperature, some of the crops can go to ripening phase earlier. Okay, that will be the dangerous. That will be not good for the crop yield production. So climate change is also affecting the agricultural sector by affecting the sowing time, by affecting the ripening, and by affecting the growth of the plants and different kinds of agricultural practices. Okay, so drying up, migratory waterways, water bodies are drying up because of the global climate change. Different lakes and different kinds of natural reservoirs are essential for migrating the birds, that is used for resting, the feeding and mating. But the climate change can affect the water bodies, can affect the natural reservoirs, that may be considered as the combined effect with the pressure like irrigation demand, pollution, that may dry up these important waterways. Water bodies are drying up very fast because of the global climate change, because of the rise in the temperature. If there is a rise in temperature, so definitely they need more water, that demand more irrigation system. And because of this, most of the birds who used to these water bodies for resting, feeding, and they are in the danger, their existence are in the danger. Okay, so these are the challenges to the everglades restoration. Okay, everglades is a kind of species, it's a kind of animal, and everglades has shrunk due to the human manipulation of the region's water, and that is ongoing effort aimed to restore the ecosystem. And the climate change impacts, that is increasing water temperature, changes in the precipitation, that may take restoration efforts more difficult. So they are, you can say, the climate change is not only affecting the plants, but they are also affecting the living species, different kinds of animals. Sea level rise is already discussed with you. Because of the high rate of the melting of ice and snow glaciers, there is a rise in the sea level along the coastal regions, and it can be fragments the barrier island and reconfigures the shorelines, that may leave the certain ecosystems struggling to adapt, in particular those adapted to the conditions between land and the sea. The landward movement of the mangroves and the marshes may be inhibited by the human development. Coral reefs are getting changing, are get affected by the climate change. Okay, climate change is compounding other factors affecting the reefs, that is coral development, population, pollution and overfishing. Heat stress causes the coral bleaching. Corals expel the symbiotic algae, leaving white bones behind, deadly to coral if long lasting. Ocean acidification. Because of the acidification in the ocean water, coral reefs are get affected by this, and they are changing into the white color, and that affects the marine organisms, and its ability to build a shell and skeletons, likely to slow or stop the growth of coral by 2100. Okay, this is the coral bleaching. Coral is an important part of the marine ecosystem, and if water is getting alkaline, if water is getting acidic, so it is affecting the coral reefs, and that may be the effective, that may be the dangerous for the marine ecosystem. Okay, so movement of the tropical species, birds and different butterflies, watchers across the southeast, looking out for the new species. Some farmers, the regional migrants are now staying year round. Means the migrating of the birds are also affecting by this climate change. Okay, fisheries. The fisheries sector is also get affected by the climate change, because of the climate change, because of the rise in the sea water, because of the acidification of sea water. Okay, the fisheries sector are get affected. That is affected by the water temperature, and that, the habitat may become restricted to the cooler pockets. Okay, and that may be affected by the oxygen level. The level of oxygen is also decreasing in the water of the sea, and because of the warmer water holds less oxygen, and that may be lead to the deadly parasite. Okay, Perkinus marinus, that is moving northwards, that range expanded from the Chesapeake Bay to the Maine. Okay, and most of the fisheries sector are dependent on the coastal region, but because of the rise in the temperature of the sea water, the fishes and animals living in the sea water are get affected, and there is a loss of oxygen level, there is a decreasing oxygen level is also affecting the living organisms in the marine ecosystem. These are some of the impacts of the climate change. Now, what is the role of human in the climate change? Okay, most of the climate change is from the anthropogenic activities. We have already discussed in previous classes. Different anthropogenic activities are also affecting the climate change. They are also causing the global warming. Okay, it is very likely that most of the climate change in the current scenario is the result of the anthropogenic activities. Different anthropogenic or human activities have increased the concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, because of the carbon dioxide emission, because of the emission from the vehicles and factories, industries. There is a higher concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. So these gases trap the heat, or you can say these gases can easily trap the infrared radiation coming from the sun and causes the earth to the warming scenario. Okay, it is already discussed in the last lecture. Okay, so the rate of climate change in the current era is expected to be extremely rapid compared to the transition in and out of the past ice ages. Ecosystems are more vulnerable to the changes that happen rapidly. Okay, so because of the rapid change in the climate due to anthropogenic activities, there may be some extremely rapid climate change can be caused in the near future. Okay, these are some of the factors, or you can say these are some of the anthropogenic activities that have many other effects on the ecosystem. These effects can be considered as a compound the effect of the climate change, making it more difficult for the ecosystem to adapt. Pollution, habitat fermentation, invasive species, overfishing, manipulation of water resources, and many more. Okay. So because of the rapid population growth, because of the rapid urbanization, due to various anthropogenic activities, there is a very severe impact, negative impact on the ecosystem due to the climate change, and that is making it more difficult for the ecosystem to adopt such changes in the climate. Okay, changes in the activities at the personal level, at the community level, and the national level can affect the rate of future climate change and species. Some of the areas where changes in human activities could help the species adopt include approach to the agriculture, water management, energy resources, transportation, pollution remediation, and biological conservation. These are some of the solutions, or you can say we can reduce the impacts of climate change by adopting these of the practices, so that the climate change due to the anthropogenic activities can be restricted, can be limited by applying these measures, these you can say solutions. Okay, the climate change is large and complex, and but it is very likely that many people working from many angles can help to address the climate change and its ecological consequences. So today we have discussed the components of ecology and how the changing climate is affecting different ecological components. We have discussed the impact of changing climate on the ecosystem, on the ecology, and on the environment of the earth. So thank you very much for today's class. And now it's all about the climate change and its impact on the ecology, including agriculture, water, different living organisms, plants, trees. Okay, and in the next class we will discuss some other topic related to the environmental geology of your unit 2 of your syllabus. Thank you very much for today's class. If anyone have any question, then you can ask regarding your queries and questions. Thanks.